Ladies and gentlemen, praise God and welcome in. This is the Matthew Dark Show. And remember, hit subscribe everywhere you get your shows. Never miss an episode. This is going to be a pretty good one today, folks. You've seen the protests, and of course, they're heavy. Ever since Donald Trump came on the scene, there's protests all the time. We've seen no kings. We've seen them against ICE. We've seen them at every state capitol. Don't you dare take away our right to do something to a child or whatever the case may be. But I think you'd be pretty surprised at how this industry works. We've got a fantastic guest who knows the ins, the outs, and kind of from the beginning of it. Adam Swart. Now, he's the founder of Crowds on Demand, the original paid protesting firm. Welcome in, sir. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, thanks so much for having me on your program. Great to be with you and your lovely audience here.
Well, I think they probably got a similar question as I do, is because I will see these protests, and they're all over the nation. It really doesn't matter, where in the country you can find big organized crowd. And I'm always sitting there thinking, how do people take this kind of time off work? How do they have nothing going on to go participate in this cause? It means, like, what is wrong? There's something else going on there. Kind of tell us about how you even came to get into this industry. How long has it been going on? And what are the kind of the ugly interactions of these massive movements? But there's more going on. Feel free, sir. Tell us about it.
So I've been in this business for 13 years. So I'm 34 now. I started this company as a college student, as a young political kind of activist. I was mostly involved in Democratic Party politics. I'm definitely soured on the Democratic Party, but I'm an independent. I work with liberals and conservatives, and actually a lot of our clients have nothing to do with politics. That's a kind of big misnomer that everything we do is political. We do a lot of non-political stuff. But I will admit, Matthew, I did not start this field. The concept that protests and movements are organized and funded, that goes well before my time. You'd have to go to ancient Rome, ancient Greece, right? But even within recent American history, you have civil rights, gay rights, Tea Party, MAGA. These are great movements. These are movements that have a lot of passionate support, but these are movements that are also bankrolled, funded by donors who therefore dictate that agenda, right? So it's interesting. There is a lot of shock when people kind of talk about, okay, the fact that a lot of people at demonstrations are being paid, but when you really unpack it, you kind of come to the idea that, wow, most of the movements are actually bought and paid for. That's not necessarily a bad thing. It's always a balance between donors trying to sort of, and kind of key powerful people trying to make sure their interests are kind of conveyed through a movement, while balancing that with the kind of what's going to catch on with ordinary people. So whether you look at conservative or liberal movements, that's really been the trend. It's not a new concept, but I think people are kind of understanding that. And my kind of goal is to explain it to people so that it doesn't feel like it's this kind of albatross of horrors, but rather this is actually just part of living in a capitalistic system like we have in this country.
Give us an example, not necessarily that your firm did, but one that we've seen on TV that everybody's going to know, that says, well, that's a bought and paid for crowd or body of people. That's not an organic movement. Anything like that we would know recently that's like, oh gosh.
Sure. Well, I think when you see the way you know that there's money behind a movement, that there's more money, right, behind a movement, is when you see things such as matching tents, right? So if you have 100 tents that all look the same, then somebody will have likely gone to REI or some type of similar store to that and bought those tents, right? So that means that those aren't cheap, right? So there's money behind it. If somebody's passing out tactical gear, right, that is a pretty clear sign that's pretty expensive stuff. There've been protests where people have been passing out tactical gear, and like hundreds of them, right? So those are expensive things and probably an indication. Those are very clear tells. But there are also other tells of where there's money involved. If you're constantly seeing a particular movement or particular leaders on the news, right, of a certain movement, then you know they probably have a good PR team, which, by the way, you have to pay for, right? So if you're constantly seeing some guy who is behind some movement on, liberal media or conservative media, and you're seeing that every single day. That doesn't happen by accident. That's because they have a PR team. So there are a lot of signs that movements are being well funded. But I guess my point to your listeners is that many of the movements that you as listeners probably subscribe to and like are well funded movements.
Right.
So the fact that there's a bunch of money behind something doesn't necessarily negate the idea that there are people in support of it.
Exactly. It can be a totally honorable cause, totally sincere. But the way we really enforce that messaging is with paid crowds, this kind of
Right.
reinforced illusion. Because at the end of the day, I mean, you spell it out in here, kind of, they are selling an optical illusion in a real sense. And that's, is it a bait and switch? Oh, yeah, probably is. If it is, if you think about it that way,
it's more like a catalyst, right? So
yeah,
it's more like a restaurant wanting a line out the door, right? It's more like
right.
you want to, if you have a
Right.
restaurant, you want to
That's a good one.
you're the hottest place in town. If you're, I mean,
Yep.
nightclub, right? You want to have, do you want to have,
50 of the most beautiful women right now. Yes.
yeah, exactly. Like, do you want to have 300-pound guys at the front of the nightclub in gym shorts, or do you want to have hot girls in skimpy cocktail dresses, right? So,
Right.
I think that I wouldn't use the word bait and switch and illusion, but I would rather use the word context, right?
Yeah.
Or even simply if you're a nightclub or a restaurant, right, to use those examples, do you want to have really bright lights or do you want to have moody lights, right? You want to set the stage for people listening to your message, right? So the line I always use is that, like, think about all the best speeches you've ever heard, right? Whether it's a Martin Luther King's "I Have a Dream" speech, or if you're a Trump supporter, one of Trump's speeches. But imagine if that was delivered in front of like 3 people, it wouldn't have had the same resonance, right? So
It's true.
I think it's about creating context, because there are a lot of movements, by the way, movements and companies that have basically languished in obscurity because no one's ever known about them. So what our service does is more like publicity rather than illusions. But certainly it can be used more in like a.
But you're right, though. When you strip out the politic element of this, it makes great sense. Of course, we're going to beef up the appearance of our restaurant. Of course, why wouldn't we do that?
Yeah.
But when it's going about, some kind of LGBTQ cause or an abortion cause that you find offensive, then you view the promotion of that as clearly this is baloney now, even though you just dispelled it, right? To
That's
those
correct.
people that say, yes, I think you should be able to abort an 8-month-old fetus.
Yeah.
For them, I believe they do believe that. I mean, they might be demonically captured, but to them, we'll say, hold on, this is a worthy cause to me. These guys promote a greater influence for my messaging. So I get it. And it's such an interesting thing because, like, anybody would use that advantage if it was going to get them over the edge. You know what I mean?
Yes, of course they do. And both sides of that issue actually do use there's a ton of money on. You mentioned the abortion issue. There's a ton of money on abortion issue, and there are people on both sides, as you correctly said, who care deeply about that issue, right, on the pro-life and the pro-choice, or pro-abortion, however you want to say, side. But the reality is, instead of trying to delegitimize, I think one challenge that we have in our society right now is we're constantly trying to delegitimize the other side rather than saying you guys are misinformed, right? So you're talking from a pro-life angle, saying, hey, there are people on the pro-choice side, right, and you're saying you acknowledge that they are passionate about it. Maybe in your view they're misinformed about the subject, or they just have different assumptions than you. So go in front of those assumptions and those views, as opposed to trying to delegitimize the movement and trying to use the fact that there's money behind it as a way to delegitimize it. And that's my advice for people, is try to actually respond to the ideology rather than the legitimacy, because there's money behind everything.
Well, exactly. And that's the issue. Not that there's this facade of support, but the fact that there's people that believe in this and would actually want to get this, go to the root cause. And that's speaking to that movement, and present your case, and then just know that you're not getting off of yours and they're not getting off of theirs, but that's okay. We're moving on. And I think that's a better way. We can't have it the other way, where the Charlie Kirk, where they tell us because of political differences, we had to kill a guy, or whatever. And we've seen this going on. So that only escalates to violence. This is dialogue, which needs to be the go-to automatic reflex. I wonder though, I mean, this is probably, you'll have some whoppers. What kind of causes come to you and you're like, we can't be behind that. We can't be involved in anything related with that, even though we're not saying yes or no. What has come down your pipeline there?
So obviously, we don't engage in any form of illegal activity. So obviously, that wouldn't be violence. But in addition to violence, we wouldn't engage in, for example, blocking a road off without a permit, right? So I actually believe that that is a violent, a form of violence because you could disrupt motorists. You're
I
disrupting
100% agree with you.
right? So I think I don't care who does it, and I'm making a completely political neutral point. Don't that's an act of violence. That's actually worse than vandalism because because you could actually endanger people's lives, including the protesters themselves who are standing in the. So it's actually irresponsible when protest organizers do that because a lot of the ordinary people who are participating don't understand because they're stupid how dangerous it is to walk in front of a main road or in some cases a freeway. Like they've blocked the 10 freeway in Los Angeles, right? This could lead to death. And so
100%.
I interpret that as a violence. So obviously it doesn't matter the cause. If you're asking us to do that, then we have no interest in working there. So that's number one. Number two, we don't want to put our people in harm's way. So in the sense of if I don't like to be kind of part of the noise, I like to convince people. So in the sense of if you just have one, a very aggressive group on like Proud Boys versus Antifa kind of thing, where it's like, okay, you just have two groups just sort of screaming at each other.
It's going to be volatile.
Yeah, why would I kind of add flames to that fire, right? And I'm not really doing any good anyway, right? Like I generally think of myself, I'm a publicist, basically at heart. I'm in the business of persuasion. I want to persuade people to see things a different way. So if it's just adding to the noise, I have no part of it. And then obviously anything that's hateful. I mean, and I understand that what is hate is inherently subjective. Like I completely disagree with this statement that's been
the Pam Bondi position.
Yeah, correct. There's no that is hate speech is inherently subjective. So when I say I don't take hateful things, I mean that is Adam Swart's definition of what is hateful. I believe that the most hateful people should be allowed to express their views if they do it peacefully. So I don't agree with Bondi at all on whatever that I don't know what
outrageous. And again, another major misstep by the administration. It's like, well, hold on a second now, guys. This is worst nightmare come true because we were told that in November this was going to be a lethal administration, a dream team, and we were going to get transparency and we were going to get action on all of the dirty deeds. This is Hillary, this is Barack Obama, this is COVID, this is the border. I mean, there was going to be heads down. Epstein were coming, and we've gotten the opposite. We've gotten maybe one of the most, I mean, they're lying, but I guess it's different than the Joe Biden area. They were also lying when they told us the border was closed. These guys are worse though. The new Trump 2.0 is worse because they gained our trust. Like I never trusted Joe Biden as far as I could throw Joe Biden. So when he tells me the border's closed, it wasn't like a betrayal. When Trump tells me that the Epstein files are a Democrat hoax, that's a great betrayal. I supported you. Now, hold on a second. I'm stupid if I bring it up. And so we are in this, and I think it ties into what you're doing is because we have this sort of very confusing environment, certainly politically, but socially, culturally, we have AI. So you don't know what is real. Trump just blamed something the other day on AI that was
now it's that's an old cop out. It wasn't. It's like like it wasn't me. It wasn't me.
I mean, so we're moving into this environment where we have crowds being paid to attend. So we don't know, is this really a huge movement or is it all paid? You're dealing with that. You're dealing with lies, talking out one side or the other. I mean, I guess, where do you see this kind of thing? Are we moving too far with this kind of, because you already have the media being essentially paid and piped in to send a narrative. Are we going too far? Or do we need to go further?
I think that we need to take a step back actually and disengage from politics. Like I'm sure if I just compare to 10 years ago right? And 10 years ago wasn't even a time
Nothing.
of no polarization, but it was a time where most people that I knew in my life were not particularly political.
Not at all.
Maybe they lean left, maybe they lean right, but I think ever since Trump's run
Yep.
for president, right? Whether you love him or you hate him,
2015 coming down the escalator changed everything forever.
yes, and it's like now everything is political. So the worst thing I think that was, and I'm not saying it's entirely due to Trump because I think
Right.
I think there's Trump derangement syndrome and I think there's Trump attachment syndrome. Like the people who just because I think the right loves to say Trump derangement syndrome, which I agree with. I know many
Yeah.
people with it, unfortunately. But I also know many people with Trump attachment syndrome.
Totally.
They worship him like a god. He says jump how high. He says get on your knees. They say yes sir.
I would say sycophants are essentially the ones that are left that just they
Yeah.
don't want to hear that he's lied to them. He didn't say that. He would never do that to me. You know, that's the mentality of
Yeah,
that
and
person.
it's wrong, and so many people have just entirely lost their family and friends. I mean, I'm speaking metaphorically
Sure.
in regards to this internet scourge. So I feel that has been the biggest problem. So I think that there is. The one thing that gives me hope is I think that this latest generation, the Generation Z, seems a little bit more politically disengaged. They kind of remind me of the Gen X, right? They're more conservative, but they're capitalists. They're less engaged. I think that I'm hoping that they say, okay, we're not going to live and breathe in politics. So I
Right.
hope. I'm generally like an optimist, and I know that the current direction that we're going in is not a good one. And I also acknowledge that I don't feel that I've always been a part of the solution. So
Yeah.
part of why I'm coming on a lot of media now is to kind of articulate, well, look, maybe I've been part of the problem, and
Right.
I want to be part of the solution.
Amen to that, brother, because you could see, I mean, how many industries had people had that self sort of restraint and they didn't, I could make more money if I press harder or I
Yeah.
could keep going, but I don't think
I
it's
make
right.
less money. I will say I
Yeah.
actually say no to money a lot more than I used to. Because people are like, "Oh, I can't believe you're not taking this, this, and this," and I'm like, "Look, I've built my business enough. I've been around 13 years. I don't have to take every cause
Right.
that comes."
Right.
So I want to. We yes, we pay crowds, yes, we pay people to come out there, but we're looking to support movements that are bringing our country in a positive way.
Before you get into the solution, because that I think is
Yeah.
valuable, we want to be a part of that too. Because I want the temperature to back down. I mean, they're going to tell
Yeah.
us that Charlie was killed by a radical leftist. I mean, I believe that the same day, that I'm 7 foot tall. But for the moment, we know there's hostility between
Too
the two
convenient,
sides.
unfortunately. The theories are, I think the challenges, and I've always been somebody who's completely disassociated from any conspiracy
Yeah.
theories. But unfortunately, the last several years, a lot of what seems to be conspiracy theories have proven true, which doesn't mean I have to believe every conspiracy theory, but it does mean that I have to question when a narrative seems too convenient, right? When it's too
Absolutely.
convenient for the left or too convenient for the right,
Yep.
right? Like it has to be questioned, and you can't just say, "Oh yeah, of course it was this person who seems exactly who you'd want to pin it on if you were looking to seize power,"
That's
right?
right.
So I'm not making any specific judgments about any particular case, but I think that people have to question it. I mean, I just last night watched Tucker's documentary, the first episode of
Yes,
9/11.
absolutely.
And I thought that was so interesting, and those things have to be questioned. It's
Yes.
not a matter of they don't have to be believed, but you can't just assume that whatever the government is telling you is just
Right.
automatically correct. That's foolish.
This has been the theme of our last 2 weeks here on the show is that, and then you just mentioned, not only is it convenient when there's this much agreement, everybody's in agreement. It's the lone wolf, homosexual, trans loving guy. He used the 30-06. The neck bone stopped it. He acted alone. End of story. Carry
And
on
just
in Charlie's
shut
memory.
up. As what is it? Tucker Carlson says, "Shut up, racist." Like it's like is a mocking of people who kind of like shut up, racist. It's kind of
Yep.
a little bit like the Jussie Smollett,
Yep.
right? Like if it's like, okay, the three angry Trump supporters in 2 a.m. in Chicago who know who
Perfect.
Jussie Smollett is, it's like okay, I'm not saying I don't believe. I'm not
The
saying
NASCAR, remember then it was right after that was the NASCAR noose
yeah. Oh God, right,
hanging in the
which was also-
garage.
that wasn't even. That was just a. Yeah,
It had been there for a year.
to question these things. It's not a matter. I'm not saying there's not a chance that what the official version of events isn't always wrong, but the official version of events isn't always right. So
Right.
maybe this Robinson guy with the transgender girlfriend or whatever, that's all. Maybe that's all true, but I if someone is using a story as a pretext to grab power, such as Bush after 9/11, such as Jussie Smollett, such as, George Floyd, right? All of these things, if you're using an event to essentially say, because this one event happened, I'm going to basically deprive you of your liberties and take your rights, and then you really need to question that story more than otherwise.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah.
And you just hit it. I think I'm so grateful because I think what a scary, confusing time when it comes to information. Who do you trust? Who can't you trust? When it comes to healthcare, the federal government has completely, up until this point, abandoned their post. They're now beginning to revisit Tylenol and medicines and the COVID shots, and all these things are being revisited. But I do ask people to go back to 9/11, and I just think you can just say one word and one phrase only: Building 7. And you kind of have to draw the comparisons and similarities to Charlie. And what they're telling us happened to him is that he was shot straight on with a 30 gauge, a 30-aught, and that that this wound that you see in his neck is actually an entry wound. That's the government narrative. That's the go with. The coroner has now, he's obviously taken either threat or bribery and said that the neck bone stopped the bullet that would have otherwise killed more people. They're trying to put some miraculous stuff on there. And the miracle from God would have been to save Charlie's life, like perhaps he might have done with Trump in his life. But the whole point is that these offenses, because see, if it's not a lone gun, I'm praying for America, it is a lone gunman. Yeah. Because the alternative is frightening. The alternative is terrifying, because that means it's intelligence, and we don't know how high something like that goes.
That's correct. That's correct.
Right. And so we are going to question this. And unlike 9/11, where the shock and the awe took over this feeling of patriotism all over the country. And that's how we got the Patriot Act to easily pass. And now we have this kind of FISA courts and surveillance, right? And we were like, no problem, as long as we get the Taliban, as long as we get a guy in a cave in Afghanistan that supposedly took out.
And we're going to invade a country that has nothing to do with it. That's
zero.
That's right, 0, 0. So this is the problem, that when a narrative is too convenient, and now they're using it to say, okay, we have to censor the speech, we have to do all of this,
we have to surveil you.
Right. And so my concern is, I don't like pretexts I don't like single events being used as pretexts to deprive Americans of liberties. So I think that these things have to be investigated. The one thing that I will also say in regards to conspiracy theories is, the government doesn't have to have some sort of total conspiracy in order to perpetrate one of these. Right. They merely need to let these things happen. So there are evil people trying to attack this country at all times, and simply by deciding not to stop them, they are allowing something like this to happen.
Correct. They're complicit.
So, and again, I'm not saying that is true in any particular event, but these are just things that have to be looked into.
Yep.
And I'm a contrarian at heart, as you could.
Me too.
My business. So I don't immediately disbelieve, but I don't owe anyone believing any particular narrative.
And I think we're just now in the culture. When I think of baby boomer, when I think of baby boomer and older, they are, if TV said it, it's true. And if government guy said it, it's true. Why would they lie? That's really hard to break them. This younger G.
And that's challenging because, okay, you see it on Fox News, you see it on MSNBC, right?
True.
Whatever it is. But I think the problem is that, if anything, that's almost preferable to this social media ecosystem where you have 50 different things. And when I open up Twitter, I see a lot of things that I know for a fact are not true.
Right.
And people just say them, right? And there are accounts that are actually purporting, like if you see it, it'll say like Tom Homan, but then it'll be like commentary account. But your average person who's an idiot who's reading it thinks it's actually Tom Homan who's saying it. Because your average person has like a very low IQ, unfortunately, right? And they're just, it's not that they even have a low IQ, it's that they're
not going to investigate this stuff.
And it's not their obligation in a way. Maybe I said that a little bit too mean. It's not incumbent upon your ordinary person to have to be an investigator. Like, I think that's the problem, Matthew, is that with this current era of information, your ordinary citizen now has to be some sort of amateur private detective to try to parse through what's a primary source and a secondary source and what are the biases. And that's a lot for people to actually do. And a vast majority of people, unless you've been to school, not even been to school, just have a really good head on your shoulders for these sorts of things. And by the way, I know many people, very, very intelligent people who fall victim to this stuff too. So because actually sometimes with a very high IQ, you can even dig yourself into a really deep rabbit hole, unfortunately. So the problem is, that's my problem with this type of information. And I do feel that what we do can be misused, like the crowds, the protests can be misused and misdirected to try to really manipulate people. We don't do it that way. I'm in the business of persuasion, publicity, attention grabbing. But I think that the people to be weary of are the people behind the scenes who you've never heard of, who don't go on the media, who are organizing things in the shadows, and they might be engaging in illegal activity.
Well, when's the last time you saw George Soros take a interview and we hear him talk about that doesn't happen, or those kind of people
that
are funding this?
Well, and the challenge is that there are a lot of donors on all political sides who can easily funnel money. Now, there's a good reason and a bad reason. So the good reason to do it anonymously is because of cancel culture, right? There's left-wing cancel culture and right-wing cancel culture. And we've worked with a lot of very wealthy individuals on both sides who basically say, hey, I want to fund this cause, but essentially I'm going to lose my board seats. I'm going to have people coming after me. I'm going to lose my charity stuff. People are going to come after my wife. So I cannot essentially be publicly behind this cause, but I want to do it as is my right to fund, kind of as my First Amendment right. So we facilitate that kind of participation, which is, I would consider, the good reason for it, right? Anonymous participation is critical. However, the bad situation is if someone's using that to essentially create plausible deniability for illegal activity, which they absolutely can do. So my kind of offer is, if the Trump administration is sincere about actually tackling the root of, which they say they are, but I don't know whether they are, of tackling the fact that there's money potentially funneling, being funneled to for violence on the left, but I think it's also on the right, then let me lead a task force to get to the bottom of it. I know exactly how these people operate.
He's not doing that.
Power. Yeah, exactly. They're not gonna. I'm not sure they're serious about it, but give me the power to actually get to the bottom of this stuff, because the reality is, these people, what they do, and they're experts at it, is creating plausible deniability, because you can create a foundation and a corporation and another corporation and an academic program and a fellowship program between you and the guy throwing a Molotov cocktail. So if you're some billionaire who wants to fund illegal activity, there's not a text message or email where they say, get the people into the street and vandalize buildings. They're not stupid. They'll never have that. So you're never going to be able to actually pin it on them until you have to trace it back and back and back, right? Get the guy, like, this is how they used to find the mafia, but this is what it is. It's a mafia. Okay, you get the guy throwing the Molotov cocktail. Who gave you the Molotov cocktail? This person gave you the Molotov cocktail. Okay, how did you pay for the Molotov cocktail? Who gave you the money? And you have to trace it back from there. And if you trace enough levels, you're gonna get to some of these guys, right? That some of these billionaires who are funding this stuff. But if you're not serious, I think the problem is that the people in charge either lack the ability or the willingness to tackle it.
Yeah, and why would you want to cut off your own pipeline and your own power structure? And that's what we so say. Hey, give us term limits. Okay, the guys who have to vote for that are the guys we're term limiting. So it's never going to happen, right? I mean, we're in this, some of this system is built in. It isn't going to change. Our guest is Adam Swart. He's the founder, CEO, crowdsondemand.com. And we talked about pulling back. We talked about now some solution. I mean, I think the saddest thing of where we're at right now as a society, and I think you're right on the same page, is if the people would step back from this emotional, this fake infusion of emotion around these topics and realize that collectively we, the people, are probably on the same page for the most part. Like the taxes are out of control. The overreach is out of control. It's too stressful. It's too dirty. It's too busy. It's too this. So if we were to remove and say collectively, though, now we could really be on the same page. And we're not really talking too much about LGBTQ right now. Like we don't even care about BLM right now. We just talk about, do you think it's right that we're paying 30% on our credit cards? What do you guys think as a body of Americans that could move a nation? I mean,
I know conservatives and liberals who hate that. I don't know anyone other than the people running those companies who likes that. You know what I mean? Right. And now, the challenge with all of that is that the challenge is that there are a lot of issues where people generally agree, and even if you don't agree on the issues, the society that most of us want has a lot in common, right? We all, for the most part, want safety, right? We all, I mean, other than maybe some anarchists on the right and Antifa on the left, everyone else wants safety, right? I mean, we all want to be able to walk around. We all actually want walkable cities. It's funny, I know a lot of conservatives who say, they don't like, we spend too much on public transit, but then when they go to a city that has good public transit, like in Europe, they're like, oh, wow, this is lovely. I don't have to get a car. I don't have to park. Right, it's inexpensive. So a lot of us like the same things, right? We want good schools, we want safety. I think that most people want. You talked about LGBT. Most people want general acceptance of people, but not it being pushed on everyone. Yes. Right, like they want.
That's a big group of people that say, just do your thing, but that ain't mine. So we're cool.
Exactly.
Just leave me alone.
Like other than very, very radical Christian conservatives, right? That's a very, very increasingly small group that basically say this is, because even if you say, oh, I think it's a sin, well, that's fine. Most of them are like, I think it's a sin, but that's you do you, right?
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like. And Tucker Carlson, again, someone I don't agree with on everything, has a really interesting thing. I think the left has miscalculated on this, and it's biting them right now. Is that Tucker has a really good line. It's like, look, the trucker in Mississippi, the MAGA trucker in Mississippi, doesn't spend a lot of time thinking about what the blue-haired person in Williamsburg, Brooklyn, is doing, right? But the Williamsburg, Brooklyn hipster spends a lot of time obsessed with what's going on in Mississippi. And I think that is, like, from my perspective, I'm like, I think the beauty of America is I can go to Mississippi, and I can go to Williamsburg, and enjoy both places. They both have their own sort of beauty, and if you want to be in one or want to be in the other, probably like most of us want to be somewhere in between, that's fine, right? So part of it is kind of vive la différence, right? Like, we love it. Celebrate. It's not celebrate diversity in that woke left sense. It's that celebrate diversity as a form of individual freedom. Right? Exactly. That's my take. Is that, and most liberals and conservatives don't really want to impose an agenda, but I think the left has done the problem is that the left is like, thinks like, okay, there's some transgender kid in Mississippi who isn't getting validated, and that is greatly upsetting to them. Right. And it's like, that person in Mississippi can wait till they're 18, go to college, and live the lifestyle that they want. Right. If that is if that is indeed how it is, right? And vice versa. The kid growing up in, plenty of very conservative people grew up in liberal neighborhoods too. So,
Sure.
um,
Oh, absolutely. And we know that that is a cultural thing, a societal thing, because there's way more of these kind of kids in LA than there is in, Timbuktu, Oklahoma. We just know
yeah.
that math is there. Well, that's not a coincidence.
But Matthew, can I tell you my theory of how truly to save America?
Go ahead.
And
Yeah, this is because the
how-
solution has to
the
come where the
solution is-
temperature's too hot.
So we have two groups in America that are the most radical groups. You have women, liberal women, right? Very educated, successful liberal women who are 90+% Democrat, right?
Yes.
The MSNBC or childless cat ladies, as the vice president calls them, right? And then on the other side, you have men, without college degree, without high school degree, men who are struggling, right? Who either aren't working or don't have a very good job, right? These are, they tend to be 80-90% Trump, right? Hillary calls them the deplorables, right?
Right.
So not my word, right? You have the deplorables and the childless cat ladies,
Right.
and these are both groups that are having a lot of trouble getting laid and finding a mate, right? Because essentially women want a guy who's a provider,
Yep.
right? And men, and so but those educated, successful women, the thing is, educated, successful men are willing to date less successful women.
Yes.
But educated, successful women are not entirely, but for the most part, not willing to date less successful men because
you're right.
Because it's biology, right? But I think that somehow, but because of feminism, right, this is going to happen. You're going to have successful women, and men are not always going to be more successful than women because we live in a country that has equal rights for women, as I think we should, right?
Yeah.
This is going to be an inevitable byproduct of that, right? So somehow you have to get the deplorables and the childless cat ladies together, because those are the people who are spending all their time on social media, all their time on the cancel culture, the radical culture. They're getting so angry because having a wife, having a husband is a great a way to de-radicalize you, right? Because if you're talking a bunch of trash, right, and saying a bunch of horrible things, and your wife is in the room, your wife is going to be like, wait a second, just dial it back, or vice versa, right?
Honey, calm down. I would be like this in the corner. Honey, calm down. You got this.
Exactly. So it's the lack of that you have these two increasingly big groups that are polarized, that I think.
What's the unifier for those two? What's the one in the Venn diagram or whatever that connects that two crowds?
They both want companionship. And if they can get over the fact that like, I honestly feel like they have to, like, how many CEOs marry an underwear model? See, male CEOs marry an underwear model or marry a cocktail waitress, right? Why is it that the female equivalent of that can't marry the male equivalent of that, right? You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
That like somehow, and I'm not saying it's good or bad, but like there's a lot of very successful men who are dating women who are less educated and less successful than they are.
I heard it like this. This was the best illustration of what you just outlined. Is if you took a man, and this is like a traditional American man, wants to work, provide for his family, get married, that's a normal guy. And he could have the CEO woman or the sweet, she's ambitious and she's go-getter, or the sweet bagger at the grocery store. He'd pick that bagger.
Yes.
But the woman in that same role, she's not going to pick the bagger man as the grocery store. She has to have the CEO husband in her mind.
And that's why it's a math problem, because successful men will more often than not pick, sometimes they'll pick successful women, but more often than not, they won't. But successful women will always pick the more successful women.
They're not going to pull a guy up. Right. Exactly. That's true.
That's why Kim Kardashian is single. I mean, you have some of the most successful women in America are single. right?
That's a different kind of woman that wants that life, and that's maybe not that attractive, like we're
To
talking
men.
about for men. No,
Yeah.
right.
Which is crazy, but it's like somehow we have to get around that
Yeah.
because in a society that rightly confers equal rights upon men and women, we somehow have to overcome that biology because it is biology that is dictated. But if we don't overcome that biology, you're going to have a lot of very successful, very radically liberal women and a lot of struggling, very radical men.
Yeah,
Right.
right.
And that is not because that's going to happen. It's just simply a math problem.
Right.
And if you don't correct this problem, you're ultimately going to not be able to correct the society. It's like the reason why so many people are committing gang rapes in India is because it's such a sexually repressed country, right? Like the reason why, so it's the same concept of that, right? It's that all of these problems are symptoms of repression, right? And this is sort of a form of repression in the United States. And I think if we don't get around it, then we're just going to drift apart because though these are the forces of the people who are dividing us. I mean, like Joy Reid or people like that are just the great examples of like the women on that side, and right there, the men you don't really know much because by definition they're just the men that are playing video games and smoking pot and but still could find a lovely lady, potentially. So anyway,
that is so okay. So those extremes, and then they're actually smaller groups than we think, right? And so, but they have huge microphones because that's the crowd that's magnified on college campuses, in the media, in TV. I mean, if you go back and just watch it, movies and TV shows from the 80s and the 90s, the way the man was viewed in those 50s, 60s, and then you look at him now, they're weak. They call them beta. They call them submissive, or the woman is the achiever. And so this is not a natural, organic thing, women into the CEO role. This has been definitely a concoction, an experiment of, because a woman, watch till they have kids. And then all of a sudden they don't care so much about that attorney job that they tried so hard for. Now they got this little baby because Mother Nature, the primal instinct, the thing that God put inside you takes over. It's like, I'm not going to a board meeting. I got the kids to watch, So that's another bad byproduct of this fabricated, we'll make the microphone so big that it looks like this is what we should be doing. And maybe our child should be, instead of a housewife, mother of children, leader in the community, or nurturer in the community, maybe she does need to be a CEO. Maybe she does need to be an attorney. Maybe we need to force her into a great college and really push the books. And they're saying this is the way it's going, and I think women have equal rights too, but there's also this thing of role and order. And it's like, if there's an intruder in our house and we're all in our bedroom, I'm never going to say, honey, get the gun, get the guy. There's somebody in that. It's always going to be me. She's always going to get the kids. That's not even like, though, a debate. So we're not equal in that sense, ladies. It's like we want to get in our proper role so that both sexes in the marriage and in the family are thriving. And if you're the breadwinner and I'm the husband, and I know this is circumstances, because it's not like I'm saying, oh, you're doing a bad thing if you're living this lifestyle. But if the mother is the 9-to-5 breadwinner and the dad is the at-home caretaker, even though, everybody's doing the thing, the order's in reverse. And I understand that finances happen and all that stuff, but mom's perfectly built to do that, and dad's actually built to go out, earn that living, protect and bring that home to the family. But that's culture, that's society. And I think part of the solution, and let you speak to this, is kind of getting back to that proper order. It's okay to be a white male. It's okay to be a white Christian male, and don't feel bad. It's okay to be gay too. I'm talking from a worldly thing too. It's not my choice for you. A Christian life would be my choice for you, but I'm going to respect that you're another sinner just like me. And I'm going to pray for you to come to God's true path for you, something in that lighting. But there's not a hostility, right? See, we've removed I don't want to be angry at that guy for being gay or whatever offends me. It's like, but why is my flesh being so offended? I'm led by the word of God, so that shouldn't be the thing. But they have played on our emotions so well. Tap, 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 tap. So the solution is, how do we bring the country? And I hate that. How do we bring the country together? It's not even about that, but how do we take like a violent situation that's bubbling at the surface and just bring it back to a level of normalcy that maybe could have better dialogue moving forward? And you would be a person in the middle of something like this.
Yes. Well, I think that one of the things that I want to do is have a campaign and to hold the social media companies accountable for their role in all of this, right? Because the you mentioned how television shows like the media in the 80s and 90s kind of decided, starting in the 90s more or less, they decided to make the dad this kind of goofball laughing stock sort of character, and therefore and that is sort of promoted that narrative. That was your point, but social media almost is worse because social media will simultaneously promote whatever narratives that are most divisive. Right. So on the one hand, they'll promote the idea that women should be, independent and should hate men, and on the other hand, they'll promote Christian nationalism. Women should have to remain.
That's just called this money. Who's paying me? Okay, you go that. I got that.
Because they're so greedy and they literally they're so evil. I mean, one of my favorite campaigns that I ever ran was called Delete Facebook, and it was in the
sweet
2010s, in the post 2016 election, where it got so much traction and it actually led to them changing their name. They call themselves Meta now because the Facebook name became so associated with kind of the evil, genocide in Myanmar, dividing Americans against each other. They even stopped making political ads so easy. But of course, there's still such raw evil platforms, in my opinion.
Yes, totally.
They understand us better than anyone. The longer you spend on there, right? Because every second you spend on there, and if you take 2 seconds rather than 1 second to look at a video, they know something about you.
See,
right?
and I want to speak to that because I don't, let's say in a search on Google on my phone, that's somehow then that kind of area that I don't always look for, but maybe on a one-off, it's showing up in Instagram. It's showing up in advertisement. I mean, these guys, I mean, so think about a company like that. They're divisive. They'll sell whatever to the highest bidder, no matter the cause. And then they're also invasive and always like, oh, I should have known you'd be advertising. I looked that up an hour ago, and here you are with just my solution. What is demonic just identity of a company?
Business model, and I think I am not someone who believes government should aggressively attack private enterprise, but they're so monopolistic and they're so powerful that if they're not reined in, they are the source of a lot of the division is social media, right? Because because what they'll say is, oh, well, we're reducing our political ads. Okay, that's fine. That doesn't solve the problem. What they want is for you to stay as long as you can on the stuff. So they're going to keep feeding you rage bait, because rage bait is what keeps you on the platform. Informative, interesting content.
It's drugs. It's drugs.
It's actually, it's a form of drug. It's like crack, right? So we have to also, all of us have to sit there and admit, like you do if you're an alcoholic, I'm an alcoholic. Here's what I'm going to do about it. So anyone who spends more than an hour a day on social media,
and
I don't, but if you do, you need to admit you have a problem, and what are you going to do about that problem?
Right. That's fair.
Social media, because the algorithm, I've noticed how sick it is. Like even Twitter, there's certain things where they'll catch my eye. I'm like, what is this? So a lot of times I'm just a very curious person. So if I click on something that has, let's just say, racist, is a clearly racist post, I'll click on it and I'll be like, what is this? It'll start, the next 10 posts I see are going to be racist posts, right? So it's like, first I was just curious, and now it's trying to get me to be more.
But you know what's worse, dude? That's like the drug dealer. You go up, he gives you a free sample. You're like, okay, I'm good. And he shows up every day and gives you more until you say, okay, I'm hooked. Essentially.
And if you don't understand how these algorithms work, so at least for me, I'm like, okay, I get what they're trying to do. And I clicked on one video about the horrible murder of the Ukrainian woman in Charlotte, which is despicable and should be condemned horribly. But now it's sending me content about why certain racial groups are bad in society, where I'm like, whoa, why is it leading me down that path instead of saying this is bad? Right. So you see what I'm saying, right?
Yeah.
So this is just one small example, but they're constantly doing it, and they're doing it. If you click on left-wing content, they're going to send you down the left-wing rabbit hole, right?
Yes.
So they're going to send you. They want to send you down rabbit holes, and if we don't crack down on social media, it is turning people crazy. Even many very, very intelligent people I know are being turned crazy by it, honestly.
I totally believe that. And it's designed, it is a dopamine, it is a chemical reaction going on.
Right.
It is designed to suck us in, just like the candy is, the food is, the medicines are, keep us dependent, keep us going. So it really is. And I'm with you as far as that being a wicked industry. And not only is it just the content that you're being forced to be exposed to, but it's also that time away from others where you're not in relationship, you're not talking,
Yes.
you're in isolation in your own fantasy world. And that's how they have us now kind of perfect. I was thinking as you said that about here's how the algorithm, one day it's taken me this way, the other day it was taking me this way. I remember listening to this show. It was this like gambling service to where they would get this list of like, say, 10,000 people across America. And they would pick a game, and for half the list, they'd give them this is the winner, and half the list, they gave them the winner. They were going to look like geniuses in half of those people's light. And just like this, maybe they're not going to get everybody. They're going to radicalize somebody. They're going to addict somebody to where now
Yes.
social media is something that they can feed, and now they're just going to build off of. It didn't get you, they'll move on. They're just looking for customers, and they've got like a limitless supply of content
do.
and customers.
It's 7 billion.
Jeez.
7 billion people in the world, maybe 8 billion. Is it 8 billion?
I think
Something
it
like
is
that.
8. And you're probably, what do you think of access to social media? 90% of the world, 80% of the world?
I think maybe less than that,
50?
but I think it's still too. It's a lot.
Internet, at least, that's different than social media, but half the world's going to can
Half
have
the
some kind
world,
of social
for
media.
sure. Yeah, half the world, and in America, it's everybody
Yes.
basically. So in terms of the developed world, it's everybody has access to it, and but the biggest thing I think people should be doing is not engage is if you can't. If you have to be on social media, really limit your time on there and limit your news consumption, because
I agree.
that is honestly like the biggest thing that I think really sends people in the wrong direction. Because the other thing that they do is they send you small snippets and clips that'll make you kind of that won't really give it the proper context
Correct.
to remarks. So now you're like, oh well, this guy is racist. So it's like, no, it's not racist. You didn't play the whole
Exactly.
thing of what he said, right?
Yeah.
So it's a big problem. But so if there's one thing that I would do, it's take those guys on. But unfortunately, these people have lobbyists in Washington. They're so powerful.
Oh my gosh.
And the problem is that every member of Congress is essentially
Yeah.
part of the problem.
Yep.
Because they're posting on social media, they're part of that ecosystem, right? Whether it's Jasmine,
All these
Crockett,
politicians made themselves celebrities via social media. That's the only reason
Correct.
we know these people.
because then they can make money off of it after they leave, right?
Right.
So that's the thing. So because it's actually an income stream for them. Because it encourages exactly the wrong behavior. So if you look at someone like Ted Cruz, right? He makes money off I think he makes money off his books and all of, he has a podcast and all of this. So does Ted Cruz have an incentive to work in the interest of the American people, or does he have the incentive to get as many likes as possible,
Right.
so that people that he can sell more books and sell more
This is going to hurt viewers, Ted, if you tell the American people the truth about this issue. Yeah, don't tell them that. Say this. And so you're right. You get that correlated lie.
Right, and same thing obviously on the left. There's like
Sure.
so many examples, right? Like Jasmine Crockett, right? Who's just like those type of people, right? But the Ted Cruzes, the Jasmine Crockett's, the AOCs, right? There's so many of them now because there's such an incentive to be a flamethrower in and there's not an incentive to just quietly work on behalf of the American people.
Yeah, you're not a rock star. You should be in and out of there working diligently on the behalf of Americans. You were privileged enough, blessed enough to get selective to do something so honorable, speaking for so many voices that would never get to speak. You don't have time for social media, Jasmine, and this goes for, your all your AOCs of the world. But go to Lauren Boebert. We don't need to see you guys either. You're trapping, and you have, in many cases, Colorado deteriorating, rotting states. And so California is, I mean, what politician from California would ever dare speak about, look at the great job we've done for the, no, 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 no. You should be in a corner hiding, trying to play catch up on all the work you've neglected, clearly.
Yes. Yes, they've done such a terrible job. California, if you think about the how much money California has, like if a European country had that amount of money, they would literally have they would all look like Switzerland. Like California should look like Switzerland. Why does California not look like Switzerland? You know what I mean? Like Switzerland, I believe, has a lower per capita. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure Switzerland has a lower per capita GDP than most of the wealthy regions of the Bay Area, San Diego, LA, right? And yet, they have a beautiful country, and California is in terrible condition, especially relative to how much money they have.
Absolutely. And the shame is California is maybe it could be like a leading country on its own if it was an independent thing. I mean, it'd be like the third or fourth largest economy in the world. It'd be a monster. And it's got so much. It's maybe the most beautiful state in all of the country. It has all the resources. What they did was two things. And so we would obviously argue the obvious one is this is a result of hysterical, wild, liberal policy drove you here, and taxes. You say you run off all the good people. I also say this, homelessness it's tough in northern Minnesota. It's not bad in Southern California. And so they're always going to be a magnet for that. I mean, if I'm going to be homeless, I'm not picking downtown St. Paul to beg for. I'm going to go to freaking LA or at least somewhere warm. And so it's always going to have that. But then they've muddled the culture because it's not a Catholic, Protestant, Christian, American. It used to be, it was red not that long ago. Now it's never returning to red. It's blue forever.
I think there's a hope, actually, but it's not because the Republicans have done anything wrong. The California Republican Party is completely incompetent.
Totally.
However, the Democrats have just continued to self-own. So there have been cases where the voters, like, for example, the voters in San Francisco actually recalled several of the board members of the school board because they were eliminating honors classes because they said the honors classes were racist for some reason. I don't know why, but they were. In many of the parents, they said, "What are you talking about?" So a lot of people with, the DA in San Francisco also, who was an associate of Hugo Chavez, the Venezuelan communist dictator.
Yes.
Of course, that's who you want.
Awful person. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and he was actually recalled from office. So the reality is, I think that a lot of California voters are not embracing the Republican Party because they despise Trump. But I do believe that
is the voting all fake though? Because kind of reminds me of the facade, the fake. The crowd is it there because a lot of the state is red. Of course, big, huge segments in LA and San Francisco, just massive populations. But is the average person in California walking around still with heavy on their heart? I want trans rights for kids. I want the BLM movement alive and well. I want open borders. I want COVID mandates. Is the average Californian thinking about that stuff on their top five?
As a Californian, let me answer that for you. Yeah. Okay, so a couple of things. Number one is, you have to understand about California politics. It'll help you understand Kamala Harris too, is that there are a ton of votes that are cast before election day, right? It's basically the unions, right? The public sector unions in particular, and the private sector, but just public sector is huge, right? So this is millions of votes, right? The unions and their households, right? They're told you better, imagine if you could vote for your own boss. Would you vote for a boss that agrees to say, Matthew, I'll give you as much money as you want and you don't have to show up to work? Of course. So essentially, you have to understand that number one, these unions have just so much power and so many votes, and they so someone like Kamala, who's not a particularly gifted speaker,
Not at
leader,
all.
no charisma. She's very good at these behind the scenes.
She would fail her Burger King interview,
I
honestly.
would think so.
Yeah.
I would
Go ahead.
think
Sorry.
so. But someone like her can do very well because she's good at the backroom deals. She says, if you support me,
And bedroom deals.
I'm gonna get. I'm not even gonna get into the Willie Brown of it all.
Sure, fair. Right.
But, yes, I think she knows how to
She's willing to do what it takes to get a
do
deal
what it
done.
takes. Yeah, grease the wheels. Of power.
What a sweetie.
Yeah. So
Mhm.
so the thing is with so someone like that, right? Number one can work the back room. So you have a ton of votes that are cast without even realizing. That's why people are like, oh, everyone's sick of Gavin. He's going to lose the recall. It's like, you don't understand. These unions, like, they show up. They have 100% turnout. Basically, they're going to show up because essentially they're not going to vote. They have every incentive to vote for the person who is going to make it impossible for them to get fired, give them huge pensions and whatever. They just promise the world.
And part of that deal is you'll never change your vote, and we'll never take this away. And we have a deal here. We'll see you in 4 years.
Correct. So I think a lot of people don't understand that group is just so influential in California politics. So you have number one is that group, but the second part is you have a lot of people who are kind of liberal, center liberal. You have obviously the progressives, right? Who actually support all of the things that you said, like strongly. Like they still want the mask mandates. They're still walking around with the masks, and they do support the kids, the gender transition for kids.
They'd like to see George Floyd dug up and maybe paraded again one more time.
Sure. Yeah. So you have that group too. Then the third group that you have. So those groups are always you're never gonna persuade those groups, right? But then you have a third group, which is actually a really big group that's decisive, but that is important, which is people kind of left of center, right? People who would never vote for Trump, in a million years, but they don't necessarily agree with all that stuff, but a lot of them are kind of scared. They don't want to be accused. They're scared of being called racist, sexist.
Well, yeah, you'll be fired or maybe kicked out of the club. Yeah.
So they're worried about that. So they tend to just go along with the left,
Right.
Because
they're kind of a little bit more aggressive in their approach, I guess, in some cases.
and
like
they
gun to your
buy-
head style.
Correct. And they also buy this whole, the Republicans are so evil that you just can't possibly
So
break.
racist. Right.
Right. So basically, but that group I think could be persuadable.
Right.
With the
And it's over. Whoever gets that group, it's over. Right. I mean,
Because
who wins?
Because that group does that group doesn't want unsafe streets.
Right.
That group is just sort of holds their nose at some of the policies. Like, for example, let me just put it in this way. This is honestly so farcical. You're gonna laugh. So the LA City Council was considering a bill that would prevent convicted child sex offenders from camping near schools. Right? So that seems pretty reasonable, right? I mean,
Fair.
I don't know anyone who would be like, no, we do actually want them near schools. So the Antifa affiliates, more or less, stormed the LA City Council and shut the meeting down to demand that this not occur. Right? So I'm like, okay.
Oh my gosh.
So these center left people, it's like they don't want that.
They don't identify with that. The average Californian, even though they're left, they don't do that.
But a lot of them are in denial.
Yeah.
A lot of those people, though, I have to say, are
Jeez.
in denial about just how radical the left is. They'll be like, "Oh, I didn't hear about it. I don't know about it."
Yeah, I was doing this the whole time, but
So-
covering your
so
eyes
they'll
and plugging your
support it.
ears.
But by the way, these people won't send their kids to their kids those schools.
No way.
By the way, the schools where this is happening are probably mostly in the Black and Hispanic districts.
That's right.
So they're
Who
not
cares
in
about
that.
those kids? Right.
Right. So I don't. So that's the challenge is that but then sort of the other group that it'll be interesting to see how it shifts is so those three groups I'm talking about, the white folks, right? But now you got the Mexicans, right?
Yes.
and the Latinos are a group that are shifting conservative too, right? Because
Now,
again,
in California, your mix of Latinos, your mix of Mexicans,
yes.
is that what's the blend, legal, illegal, you think?
Well, of course. I mean, if you're talking about the illegals, they're not eligible to vote, obviously. I mean, I honestly, to tell you the truth, I can't answer that because we have no idea how many
No idea, right.
people are in this country. So whatever the numbers, I'm guessing whatever Trump says is too high, and whatever the Democrats have said is too low. So I have no idea where
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough.
number is.
That's fair.
But you have a lot of Latinos who they don't necessarily. I think Trump's rhetoric on immigration has gone too harsh. From okay, we're going to close the border, we're going to take on the drug traffickers, versus we're deporting like the aunts and the uncles and the taco shop workers, right? And it's like, okay, that I think most Latinos do not want the criminal gangs in the country.
Well, this is what it is that we wouldn't have even really gotten that upset. I mean, the 20 million, in my estimates, is what Joe Biden allowed in. Everybody concedes at least 10, but it's 20, and it's probably bigger than that. And it's been going on a long time, and it's really offensive. But if all the stories we heard in those 4 years were, immigration numbers are high, but they've opened up another factory in Nebraska, and they're now cranking it out, and they're doing great. If we heard only those kind of stories, or maybe the illegal alien saved a drowning child, and we only heard those kind of stories, then this would not be a hot presser, big topic issue. But we didn't hear those. We heard about murder. We heard about the fancy hotels and $500 a night in New York City,
which is absurd.
Bankrupting cities, and it's like, now what?
There should be
that's
no
where
free stuff given to illegals other than healthcare, because it doesn't benefit anybody. And I don't think any American should be without healthcare. That's my
okay. This is what I would say with them, is that you would, if they are here in the physical country and they are in need of life-saving care, you save the life. You follow up on the care. You make sure the person is okay. I agree, even if you're here illegally, because they do that for some scumbag prisoner that maybe just raped a child. If he got shot by the police, they're going to give him medical care.
We're a civilized country. I'm sorry. That's how we do that.
So that's fair. But the other thing is now that we've gotten you well, we see that you've broken the law. And unfortunately, we do have. So there's where we start to get into the dissection.
I 100% agree. And I think that the sanctuary thing is also hard, because my opinion is, number one is, because I take an independent stance on it. Number one, I don't believe generally in sanctuary cities, other than the idea that if you're an illegal immigrant who, let's just say you work at a taco store and you witness a violent crime taking place, part of what a sanctuary city does is allow, if you're that illegal immigrant, you should be able to report that to the police.
And that would be a benefit to society to have that crime reported.
And not be like, oh, well, who are you? Oh, well, we're going to deport you.
That's fair.
Okay. So
I would trade that all day.
Right. So I think that part of it is you can't make illegals fear any interaction with law enforcement. And we also are in this situation that, due to our own economy, where most of these illegals are actually working, right? So there are jobs. So the challenge is that I don't necessarily think that we should. I think the Trump administration has proceeded with more cruelty than is necessary, but Biden proceeded with just complete recklessness and fecklessness.
Yeah, and you would just speak to it as this, is that all the people that are, again, these are these extremes, where one extreme was we're going to round up all 20 million, they're all gone. We knew that was never going to happen. That's a pipe dream. That's a myth. Not going to happen. Nor is it what we need to be doing right now. Anyways, you had to close the border. Okay, that's done. That just brought us back to even. Now we start with our criminal organizations, all the known ones. These people waiting trial, that's a separate issue. What people always need to know about the sanctuary city, the open border. Do you know how many children were raped getting across that border? Do you have any idea how much people still are paying a debt to the cartel for getting across that border because Joe Biden said, come on in, but it's going to be 25,000. And if you don't, we'll kill your family, who we know. So it's been a bungling. It's because both sides are in on it. Both want these cheap immigrants coming to this country ultimately, or they would have fixed this a long time ago. This is the most powerful body in the world, the Senate. They could say, borders closed, come over here, we're going to be like North Korea and shoot you. Don't come here. They could send that message. They've chosen not to, because it's best for commerce, best for votes, That's for tax revenue. I mean, that's the thing
Yes.
too. These 20 million people, even though, and I do not think they deserve a right. I know some of them are better people than others, and I'm not going there with it. But at the end of the day, both these politicians, all these politicians, both sides, they're paying sales tax on everything they go do.
Yes, they
They're
are.
renting apartments. They're putting money. So yeah, we'll take a little extra for our coffers while we're going along.
Yes, they will. They absolutely will. And of course, there's plenty of hypocrisy to go around there. I mean, Trump has hired plenty of illegals in his day. So
Oh yes,
that but the idea
status quo for the elite, basically.
it should not. Well, yeah, I mean, and if you right, correct, it's status quo for the elite. So I guess my take is you got to have a balance. We got to protect the American workers, but also we got to you can't. You're not going to be able to ever deport 20 million.
Never.
You can make it hard, but what the Trump administration has correctly done is made it very hard for any additional to come.
Exactly.
So now let's focus on finding out who of those 20 million are violent, right? If you're a violent gang member, then we should do things. But the problem is, I also, as a civil libertarian, support due process for everybody. Now, it's funny, I was on a podcast and I got asked a really dumb question, which is, do you support due process for illegal immigrants? And I was like, of course, how else would we know they're illegal immigrants?
Well, exactly.
But for due process. I mean, like, a due process doesn't mean you can extend it out for 10 years in court. I don't necessarily support that. But whatever the process is, that I mean, I have a tan on me. What if they arrest me and say you're an illegal immigrant? Oh, do you have your passport on you? No, it's at home. It's like, oh well, fuck off.
I lost it. Yeah.
Yeah, we're taking you to some facility, and now we're sending you to El Salvador, right? So
Exactly.
I mean, and I keep saying, no, it's me. I'm
No,
American.
you're exactly right to describe the due process, because this is, hey,
Yeah.
sir, we saw you sneaking across the river there. We're going to bring you over here. The process is that we're going to identify you. And
Yeah.
if you're found to have done this without the authority to illegal, this is our process from here, is you're
Yes.
immediately deported. That's the process
Correct.
that's missing is, yeah, of course they're going to get an opportunity to get it, say, hey, no, I belong here. I live here. I'm an American citizen. And we can say, okay, prove it.
Prove
And
it.
then we allow you to prove it.
And if you can't prove it, and you're
You go
not,
back.
or on the if in the reverse, we have evidence of you crossing the border illegally. Here's the evidence you're illegal. You have no documents. You have no possible way to prove it that you're here. Right? We've given you the chance to show it. Okay, deport. Right? It's like, okay.
And you know, liberals describe that process as like so awful. So this is, think about it. Okay, so you've made a trek from Honduras or whatever. It is a long walk.
yeah,
And you got here and you're found to have done that illegally.
yeah.
And now they're just going to fly you back. It's not like you're going to be in jail for 25 years and like be
No.
forced into hard labor. They're going to send you back where you
On a
came from
plane.
on a plane, way
Yeah.
better than, and then you figure it out in your own country. And if you want to do it right, we'd love to consider your application essentially.
Consider, yeah.
That's
And
okay.
I think I think that's right. I don't think it's a particularly cruel process. I would rather now I've heard bad things about the detention facilities, and if those reports are true, that's bad. I think the facilities should be comfortable but Spartan, and they should be
Minimal.
and they should be livable, and what we should, but my thing is, I don't want people in these facilities very long at all. I want us to very, very quickly
We
say,
get you a trial this week to determine authority to be here or not.
yeah,
And then it's no.
20 minutes, and
Do you?
we figure it out. I mean, it's not, this doesn't have to take that long. It's not, this isn't like Elizabeth Holmes Theranos trying to figure out the intricacies of a fraud allegation. This is,
Right.
you came in illegally, you know, you're here, you're not, right? So,
And when the solution is that simple, you know, it's because they want them here, right? Or else
right,
we
and
would
of
make
course,
it that simple.
of course, there are
Yeah.
private prison companies who make money from it.
Oh my God. Listen, illegal immigration, and we're not even talking about all the NGOs and all the nonprofits. I mean, there's big, huge money in illegal immigration, and so many people are feeding off of it. I mean, so that's the problem again. Once again, hey, we want term limits. Oh, okay. You want us to have a shorter job span and less money? Okay, we'll vote ourselves because we represent you. Now, see, that's like the greatest conflict in America.
It'll never happen. And even if
Yeah.
it does happen, like California, we have term limits, but what happens is they just cycle. So the same
Right.
idiot goes from the state senate to the assembly to the city council to the board of supervisors. It's like a merry-go-round, right? And it actually makes them more like whores for money because they're
Yes.
even more fundraising. And then if you actually have the term limits, then they're going to be really sucking up to the companies that would hire them or the labor unions that would hire them, right? So it actually, like, number one law of public policy, I always say, is the law of unintended consequences.
Yeah.
So even if you do term limits, it's not gonna create the class of citizen legislators that
Right.
this isn't Atticus Finch, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like, this isn't what you're gonna get here, you know.
I agree with you on that. And it'll never happen anyways. I mean, give me a break. It's like saying,
Yeah.
okay, here, let me just take money physically out of my pocket and throw it away. Even though it's what you really want and you're the one that voted me in, it'll never happen. Our guest is Adam Swart, founder, crowdsondemand.com. I mean, this has been really kind of a great show going in all these just social areas that it's on people's minds. I don't know how much we're talking about it, need to talk about it more. Again, we're probably much closer on so many of these topics that are so volatile, so hot button. But when it comes down to it, we're in pretty much lockstep agreement. You might extend their healthcare a little bit longer than they're here, but at the end of the day, okay, you broke a crime. There's really bad people, Americans too. We're saving their lives all the time, and so we can do that, but we still got to hold you responsible for what you've done. And I know it's a son of a gun, and but we'd love to have you back. We wish you the best, and get on out of here. And that, like, a lot of people can get on board with. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And so, so I want to continue and keep going. What's the best way for people to follow your stuff, support, kind of keep up to date with what you're doing?
www.crowdsondemand.com. And then my Twitter/X handle is @CEO Adam Swart. If you have, like, you see my views, I'm very independent. So
Yeah.
particularly what I like to take on is, like, I mean, and we do a lot of stuff for companies too. So companies, like press for companies, like publicity outside the box, that type of thing. But in regards to cause, we like to just take on things that are just common sense.
Oh, that's what I was going to
What's
ask you. That's what I think I forgot to ask you. If you're somebody who's like a rentable crowd person, okay, we're
Yeah.
protesting logging in Washington today or whatever.
Yeah.
What kind of money can the people make? If I'm I'm signed up
No,
as a
that's a great one. I
contractor.
think we may have even done that one.
Yeah.
And probably, like, typically it ranges from the low 100s into the multiple hundreds. It depends on how
Like
many
a day's
days.
commitment
Yeah.
or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you're out in the cold, like,
Right.
for 12 hours, it's going to be in the kind of hundreds. And
Could make
if
some
it's
money.
if you're just more sitting in an auditorium for a couple hours, probably on the lower, like, 100s.
Right.
And
Okay.
so it really depends. The money is good.
I could see it though, like the Uber guy, the multiple job guy. He's on
Yes.
this. It's like, okay, cool. I could go make 200 this weekend. I'm going to do that, then go Uber, and
That's
so I get
correct.
that for sure.
And you know what? The way that I look at it is the
I don't know how
compensation-
ethical. Maybe you have to say I have to pass on this one, but I'm back for the next. You
Correct.
know?
And the
And
money
you would pass on some Uber rides too.
No, believe me, yeah, there are a lot. Well, the thing is that the compensation we give these people, it's enough for them to compensate them from, like you said, the Uber. It'll be more than you'd make from the Uber,
Right.
but it's not so much that it's going to have people betray their views. So, because what I want is for you to show up for causes that you believe in. So if you're an environmentalist and you really don't like logging in Washington,
Yeah.
then show up and you know what I mean, and express your view, of course, peacefully, respectfully, etc. But this is a perfect opportunity to get paid for expressing your view. If you're someone who is on the who is a Trump supporter, you're not going to necessarily want to go out to a into a pro-choice rally. Right? So it doesn't matter if you're paid.
That's totally fair.
$200,
Just
you're
like
actually-
if you were Ubering and your route is here, but the ride that came up is going to take you 30 miles. I'm not
You're gonna
interested
do
in
it.
not go. I'll pass. I'm going to wait.
So we try to get people who are really genuinely in support of the cause.
Yes.
And that actually costs. I'll tell you, Matthew, I've lost money doing that because like, it actually costs us more money to do that compared to just hiring actors. So our profits have actually gone down since we made that a priority, because it's harder to get people and we have to pay people more. Right. So as a result, and we haven't been able to fully pass that along to our customers, because sometimes our customers will be just like, I need bodies. Right. And I'll tell them, I'm not ethically willing to just provide you bodies.
You're bringing more authentic bodies now.
Exactly. So I've actually reduced my profits by doing this. You know what I mean? So it's actually, but I think long term, it's the
Yeah.
basis of a more sustainable business.
Yeah.
So it's worth it. So even though it's actually costing me money over
You'll
the
be able
past,
to move future accounts up based on that model of
Correct.
authentic crowdfunding, which is distinguishing than other crowdfunding platforms, which is just any hooligan that got off the couch today. He's there, and I don't know
And
how
that's
it's going
not
to go,
what we
but I
want.
got your body.
Exactly. And that's not going to serve your cause well, because those are
Yeah.
going to be the people who are going to look embarrassing.
That's going to be the social media clip of the guy they get that just take the movement, and now they're like, oh, gross.
I want people who are passionate and have lived like real experience
Yep.
in the cause,
Yep.
So that's what we try to do. That's I hope that people kind of see like the purpose that what we're bringing to this, and I haven't
I like
always
it.
feel like I've been on the right side, but I'm really trying to that this is my focus is in this next few years. That's my focus, is really taking on impactful causes, impactful customers, and doing things the right way.
That's beautiful, dude. That's well said. We want to continue to follow you, support you. We'll check in and stay up to date with you. And then we'll get links and all the ways to follow you in the show notes and, of course,
Got it.
on all the platforms. So we appreciate it. We'll have you back. And, folks, do this until next time. Serve God, help others, stay good. Goodbye. God bless everybody.
The Matthew Dark Show, your one-stop show for truth, courage, fellowship, and faith. Available everywhere you get your podcasts.